Is there an unseen realm behind the curtain of what we can see with our eyes? Is there a supernatural reality behind the one we know? I attempt to explain the unexplainable and get to know the unknown beyond the veil of this dimension from a Christian perspective. I'm Jerry, your host for Thai Girl for God Radio. Thank you so much for listening to the Thai Girl for God radio show. I have my good buddy and friend in podcasting who has taught me everything I know. That's Justin Cancellieri from Paratruth Radio, one half of Paratruth Radio. Welcome, Justin.
Hello, everybody.
Yay. I'm so glad that he's on my show to talk about his new, interesting, fascinating sci-fi Michael Crichton-like book called
The Legendary Creature Project, The Griffin.
Woohoo! He's going to be right next to Michael Crichton on the New York Times bestseller list. I can see it. I can see it now.
I'll keep my fingers crossed for it, but we'll see what happens.
I'll pray and keep my fingers crossed too, my friend. Well, I'm excited that you are a published author. I also, my friend, am going to be listening to Jerry Jenkins write and publish your book type of seminar soon.
Okay.
I'm excited to hear about that, and maybe he'll inspire me to start not putting pen to paper, but actually, causing me to type. And, I could type and I could write. It's just the motivation lately has been lacking due to some health issues and what have you. But yeah. I need to do it. I just have to do it. Just like you had to type this.
I hear you, because I'm already ready to start the next book, and Shelley even made the comment to me today that she would like to see the next one out in the next 6 to 8 months. So I really need to truly I need to do it, but with her inspiration and pushing me, it will be hopefully done by the beginning or the end of next year or so.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you as a successful published author and doing something you love to do. And you inspire me. You've inspired me to do podcasting. Now you're inspiring me to also become an author too. And God has laid it on my heart for years and years to be an author, probably since I was 30. So for the last 14 years. And I've read so many biographies and such, and I thought, okay, it's time for me to do it. So Justin, tell me, what inspired you to write Griffin?
Well, it's been a combination of things, really. I've loved writing from a very young age. I can't remember what grade it is, but it was in grade school that I actually wrote and illustrated my own book, for a contest and submitted it. I don't remember it winning anything, but just the fact that I had done it myself, and it was handwritten, hand-drawn. I had done it myself, and from then on, I truly believe that I was always called to be a writer. It took a few side roads, but when I saw the movie The Island of Dr. Moreau, I saw the original, I also saw the remake. It sparked something in me that I thought it was a really good, interesting idea of a human-animal DNA splice hybrid type creature. And this particular story actually started when I was in high school. And it was originally a Batman, I guess you could say, a man spliced with a bat's DNA. And it was a little gruesome, and this story actually is much more mild compared to that one. But once I got back into the writer's chair, if you will, this was the one that I still wanted to write. So I went with The Griffin. The Griffin is one of my all-time favorite mythical creatures. Everybody that listens to Paratruth Radio knows that dragons are at the highest point of my fantasy creatures that I like, but the Griffin was in that top 5. So that's why I started with the Griffin. I've told a lot of people that this book is actually going to be a set of a trilogy. I am trying to figure out what to go into next for the next creature, But the weird thing is I've got book 3 pretty much already written in my head. I just have to put it down, but I don't think I could go out of sync with book 1, then book 3, then I have to go back to book 2 and think of everything I did in book 3 so that they all sync together.
That's awesome. Now, what is a griffin?
A griffin is a half eagle or large bird and a half lion. The traditional depiction is a eagle and a lion. My depiction is more of a large gray bird and the back half of a lion. So it differs only slightly.
Interesting. So how many pages is it, like novel-wise?
The paperback is 217 pages. The Kindle version, I believe, is 180 pages.
Oh, okay. Okay,
so
the way
a little
it's
bit shorter.
situated.
Yeah, but
all the pages and such. Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing was I got so involved with the story that I didn't give detail where I should have, and gave more detail in other places. So the editing process was kind of grueling for me because I'm like, I don't know what to take out and what to leave in. I did my best with that too.
That's great. So how many characters are in Griffin? And then tell me a summarization of some of the main characters.
There's multiple characters. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe 5 main characters. Hillary, Dr. Hemshine, Samson, Pete, and Dr. Jerome. Both doctors work in the lab that Achilles is supposedly found. They find him, quote unquote. Dr. Hemshine is the protagonist of the entire trilogy. And Dr. Jerome is one of his working colleagues. Hillary is a lab assistant who eventually meets Achilles and finds out what he really is, so she decides to free him. Samson is a military friend of Hillary's who she gets to help her, and Pete is also a military friend of Samson who also decides to help the ramshackle crew to get Achilles free.
Wow, very interesting. So what genre do you think it would be? Would it be sci-fi or
at the heart, it's science fiction, but I like to think of it science fiction meeting fantasy.
Oh, that's so cool. Now, if it were to be turned into a movie, right? Like if your Hollywood dreams came true, if it turned into a movie, what kind of movie do you think it would be similar to, like Jurassic Park or Splice or?
Honestly, I think it would be kind of close to the Island of Dr. Moreau just because of the content, but different because it's not on an island, it's in a lab. Yeah, that's probably the closest I could say that it would relate to.
I haven't seen the Island of Dr. Moreau. I'll have to Netflix it if it's on Netflix, or Amazon it if it's on Amazon. Very interesting. Now, when was that movie made? In the 70s or 80s?
The original, I believe, was done in either the late 60s or early 70s. The remake was done in the 90s.
Oh, a remake. So it must have been notable for them to remake it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In the remake, Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando
Plays Dr. Moreau, yeah.
Is the movie slightly horror, or is it mainly 99% sci-fi, or?
It's kind of both. It's one of those weird movies where it's science fiction, but it kind of blurs the line.
Oh, interesting. So what do you think about some of the claims of people that state that they've seen these creatures, like J.C. Johnson and the clients that he's helped who call him or email him frantically saying, I saw this, half man and half dog lurking around here and terrorizing the crops or terrorizing, our family or something. What do you think about these claims?
Well, I mean, I've talked with JC. I've talked with numerous people about cryptids. Some people claim that they are possibly a human-animal hybrid. Some people claim they're creatures that have been here. Man pretty much has been here. Some people claim they're interdimensional creatures. I honestly have never seen any of these creatures, so I couldn't tell you one way or the other. The one thing that I always thought was interesting when I saw the article about it was I believe it's a lab in Sweden or UK, I can't remember, who has the human-animal hybrid embryos that they are calling the Chimera. That's where I started to kind of question a lot of things, because in modern science, at least what we're being told, it is not possible for human-animal hybridization. But I've always been fascinated by the subject because, like I've told a couple other people now, I mean, how cool would it be to be this lion animal or lion man thing that, I mean, you have the intelligence of a human, but you have the animal instincts of whatever creature you're mixed with. So that's kind of why the story took the way that it did, because I've always been fascinated by it. What's really going on, I don't know.
Interesting. Wow. So when did you start writing it, and when did you finish it, and when did you publish it?
I started writing it around 3.5 years ago. I truly sat down to get stuff done 2 years ago, and in the last 6 months was when I finally got editing and cover art and all that stuff done, and it was released, I believe, July 3rd was the first day it was on the market.
Would you say that your worldview, your philosophy is sort of intermixed in the story? Because, yeah, for example, obviously, you have spiritual and supernatural viewpoints, and I know that you're a Christian, albeit you would probably say one that's a little bit more liberal.
Yeah.
Would you say that your viewpoints are kind of interwoven in the story?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that a lot of the characters, probably all the characters, are some way in another part of my personality. So in that same sense, yeah, all of the beliefs within this book are what I would truly say I believe about some things, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Wow. So would you say that the name of the griffin is Achilles?
Yeah.
Achilles. Oh, okay. So would you say that his nature or whatever, like he's completely, everything that's been done to him to create who he is, it's all genetic, all biological? It's nothing like Genesis 6 or anything like that?
No,
but it's
just a scientist basically trying to recreate the legendary creatures of old through human genetic manipulation. And he decides that he needs to bring these legendary creatures to modern day.
Oh, interesting. So since the griffin is a legendary creature, when would be their heyday, or when would be their era for the most griffins to fly around? And
the griffin was big in Greek mythology and Roman mythology. So around those times, that's where it originates. I honestly have always wanted a lot of these creatures to be real, but just like the creatures today, like Bigfoot or, Loch Ness Monster, we have no proof because we don't have any bodies or skeleton or anything like that to say that these things are real. So I actually was talking to Eric for our show, and he asked, do you think these things were real at one time? I said, it's possible, but just like everything else, we have no proof. There's nothing to say one way or the other.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is speculation and hearsay and, mythology, for the Greeks and Romans and what have you. And, so it's difficult to, I guess, determine, what is, mythologies and, what is actual factual proof, and evidence. Like for example, our faith is in Jesus, and we obviously, have a certain amount of proof, from historical records and what have you,
Right.
that there was obviously a man named Jesus. I mean, at the very least, we know that.
Yeah.
And obviously Christians believe, and know in their hearts that, he is God, the Son of God. Whereas, for example, like, it's open to speculation, whether or not, these different creatures, like you said, the Loch Ness monster and the various, different creatures that people have talked about, like the dog-headed beings that J.C. Johnson was talking about, in Egypt. And I know that he, and as well as many other Christians in the truth movement, they would say obviously that not only these creatures are alive today, but they were alive back then. So they would say with quasi certainty that they do exist and that they were created through the means or method of Genesis 6, i.e. the fallen angels, having sex with women, and creating these hybrid offspring to create the giants, or having relations with animals and creating half fallen angel and half ape, like the Yeti or something like that. And that was fresh in my mind because we were at a theme park and there was the whole thing was centered around the Yeti monster and everything, and I started thinking, like, what is the origin of the Yeti? Like, is it genetic in a lab, or was it, just hearsay and people making up stuff, or truly did fallen angels happen to, have relationships with apes and create something like the abominable snowman, what, like I guess we could speculate on it, and so there's a certain amount of, I guess, people saying, they've seen this and they've had interactions, with that creature, this creature, and there's even, videos and, supposed photographic proof, or, stories that would cause somebody to wonder, if these creatures are actually true, but just because they seem to not, have, any reason, to lie about it, or they weren't, on drugs or drinking or whatever.
Right.
So one kind of wonders, I guess, but I guess it's really difficult to come out with 100% proof and say, unless you had like a skeletal remains, and some people have claimed to, I know like L.A. Marzulli and his gang, I think that, the people that he's talked to, I think that they've had some, they've had some sort of, or seen and taken photographs of giant bones and things like that.
Oh, right, yeah. Anyway. I think there are, some proofs of giants. I mean, there's, I believe in one of the museums they have some type of skeleton. I could be wrong on that, but, I've seen different pictures, and I mean, with Photoshop nowadays, or any type of picture manipulation software, you can make a giant skeleton appear anywhere you want it to. So that's one of the biggest things that I struggle with doing Paratruth Radio, is like the people that claim that these things are real and all they really have are stories, and some people have the hair or scat evidence, and all it really comes up with is unidentified species. Now, does that mean it's Bigfoot? No. It just means that it's a species that we haven't discovered yet, or there's contamination in it. Right.
It's so difficult to say with 100% proof. I guess that's where faith comes in. So maybe there were creatures such as the griffin. I wanted to mess with you and Photoshop your face on a griffin and see what you thought. Put it on your Facebook wall.
That'd be a pretty scary griffin.
Yeah. So if you had your way and you could make this a movie, like, who would direct it and who would be the screenwriter? Well, I have an idea of who would be the screenwriter. I think it would be Eric, but if it were the director, like a real big time director, producer, who would it be?
Probably J.J. Abrams at this point.
Oh yeah, Star Wars.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
because he's done both Star Wars and Star Trek now, so he's
that's
going
right.
down that line. So
well, he could definitely make Chewbacca come to life. So if he could make Chewbacca and all these other creatures come to life, then I think that he could make I was going to call him Alexis. So he could make Achilles. The Griffin come to life. That would be interesting. Would you want him to be CGI'd, or would you want him to be a real man with costume and makeup and monster gear and things?
If they could pull it off, a real person would be great. Even animatronic would be great. I just think that CGI is way overdone nowadays. Now, granted, that's probably the easiest way to do it now compared to what they were using back in the day, but yeah, I would honestly, like, one of my all-time favorite movies is The Labyrinth with David Bowie. And
oh, yes, that's a good movie.
A lot of those creatures were either animatronic or puppets, because it was done by Jim Henson. And another one that was one of my all-time favorites is Neverending Story and Falkor, the dragon dog creature. So I've always loved the ones that look more realistic than... Now, granted, the CGI, especially for people, have gotten much better, but I would still prefer, animatronic or even a person if they could make the makeup good enough.
Well, you never know. Now, so is this self-published or is this published by?
It's a self-published book through Kindle Direct Publishing. It's a subsidiary of Amazon. Amazon has CreateSpace, and they also have Kindle Direct. And what that basically is they were originally using that just for the Kindle, and now they've adapted it to where you can do a paperback as well. But it isn't by any particular publisher. Basically, I'm the publisher, editor, and writer.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that after you publish it yourself, and I think that after, you get a certain amount of people, purchasing your book, and I'll be one of them, that it'll open the door, for you to get an actual publishing company, to publish it.
Right.
Then we'll see it at Barnes & Noble and then hopefully on the silver screen.
Well, and it's funny, I was reading a couple articles that people were posting on Facebook, and most of them were about J.K. Rowling. And J.K. Rowling went through 14 different publishers before she finally got accepted for the Harry Potter series. And,
oh, wow.
It just took that one, but I mean, and I could only be speaking for myself, but I submitted to several publishers, not necessarily huge name publishers, but publishers. And I got one rejection letter. Everybody else just basically ignored me. So it kind of hurts, but at the same time, I'm sure every author does go through it. So I try not to take it personally. And I try to think of it from a publisher standpoint. Is the story going to sell? Is it something that we can market to multiple markets? It's just one of those things. But yeah, it was rough, but at the same time, I was blessed enough to have a writing and podcasting friend who published his book through Kindle Direct, and he's like, dude, go through Kindle Direct. They don't charge you anything. You get to do a paperback and a e-reader copy. So I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I just had to get it edited and get somebody to do the cover art for me. So.
Oh, wow. Kindle Direct.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I write my book, I'll go through Kindle Direct. So with them, they just keep a part of the proceeds of each $13 or whatever the book costs?
Yeah, it's basically like a regular publisher for the most part. You get royalties. I get better royalties from the ebook than a better deal for the royalties, because I get 70% for the ebook, but I get only like 40% for the paperback.
Oh, wow.
Because they do
So no
charge you
upfront
printing
fees?
No upfront fees. They just charge you the printing fee and the their cut, I guess you can say, but they take it out of the sale of the book. You don't pay anything out of pocket.
So you were able to upload your own artwork to it, or did they create it?
Nope.
Okay.
I uploaded it. I had issues because of certain things that the one person created. The cover, she created the whole cover for the paperback, and for whatever reason, it would not upload properly, so I just took the front cover, pasted it onto one of their generic templates, and created my own cover that way.
Oh, wow. That's great. Well, do you believe that people shouldn't judge books by their covers, or do you think that a cover is indicative of what the book content is?
Well, actually, Jim Mallier from the Mallier Report asked me this yesterday. I was on his show, and the basic same question, does the cover affect how people buy books? I think they do. I mean, I personally will pick up a book and go by the front cover. I will pick it up just because of the front cover, then look at the back and read about it. But I think the front cover has a huge part of it. But the story is what's going to keep somebody to actually buy the book and keep reading it.
Right. The story will actually cause the person to be engaged,
right.
and whatever is written in the prologue or on the back or what have you.
Right.
How interesting. Wow. So does your wife share your love of writing or reading?
No and no.
Oh, okay.
She did read the book for me, and just gave me ideas. But, her creative thought goes into pottery and painting, where mine goes into writing.
Well, everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. I know that Ted, my husband, definitely doesn't like to write a whole lot or speak, but he does have to do a lot of it for his occupation, which is a city planner. But I actually would do those things out of enjoyment. But he has.
Now we're going to take a break for Jerry's Food for Thought. Now it's time for Jerry's Food for Thought. This is on BBC.com as well as on NationalGeographic.com, but I'm going to read from BBC.com because it's more summarized. Human-pig chimera embryos detailed by James Gallagher, January 26th of this year. Embryos that are less than 0.0001% human and the rest pig have been made and analyzed by scientists. It is the first proof chimeras, named after the mythical lion, goat, serpent monster, can be made by combining materials from humans and animals. However, the scientific report in the journal Cell shows the process is challenging and the aim of growing human organs in animals is distant. It was described as an exciting publication by other researchers. To create a chimera, human stem cells, the type that can develop into any tissue, are injected into a pig embryo. The spherical pig embryo is held in place while a tiny needle is used to inject human cells. The embryo, now a mix of human and pig, is then implanted into a sow for up to 1 month. The process appears very inefficient. Of the 2,075 embryos implanted, only 186 continued to develop up to the 28-day stage. But crucially, there were signs that human cells were functioning, albeit as a tiny fraction of the total tissue, as part of a human-pig chimera. This is the first time that human cells are seen growing inside a large animal, Professor Juan Carlos Ispisua Belmonte from the Salk Institute told the BBC News website. Commenting on the inefficiency, Professor Belmonte said, "Humans and pigs are separated by a long time in evolution. Development in the womb is also much faster in pigs. Pregnancy lasts less than 4 months compared with about 9 in people. It is like a freeway with one car going much faster than another. You're more likely to have an accident," Professor Belmonte said. He added there was a long distance between now and growing animals with human organs, such as a heart, pancreas, or liver that can be transplanted. However, in the meantime, the Salk researchers argue that making chimeras with more human tissue could be useful for screening drugs before human trials, studying the onset of human diseases, understanding the earliest stages of human embryo development, explaining differences between organs in different species. Dr. Jun Woo, part of the research team, told the BBC, getting the efficiency in the range of 0.1% to 1% human cells should be enough. Even at this early stage, 28 days, billions of cells in the embryo would have millions of human cells. Then testing would be meaningful and practical. There was no evidence that human cells were integrating into the early form of brain tissue. On Wednesday, a study in the journal Nature showed how organs could be grown in one species for use in another by making some room. Rats were genetically modified so they could not produce a pancreas, the organ crucial for controlling blood sugar levels. Mouse stem cells were injected in the deficient rat embryos, promptly took advantage of the missing pancreas, and grew a mouse one there instead. This was then transplanted back into mice to treat diabetes. The work to try this in humans and pigs is already underway, although in the long term, cows look likely to be a better host for human organs, as both cow and human pregnancies last about 9 months. The field is also ethically charged. The U.S. National Institutes of Health at one point imposed a moratorium on funding the experiments. The researchers have done only research that is legal, but they are aware of the controversy. Professor Belmont said, "We are restricting development to 1 month in the pig. The reason is this is enough for us now to understand how cells mix, differentiate, and integrate. One possibility is to let these animals be born, but that is not something we should allow to happen at this point. Not everything that science can do, we should do. We are not living in a niche in lab. We live with other people, and society needs to decide what can be done." Dr. Wu said, when the public hears the word chimera, it is always associated with Greek mythology. There's always this associated fear. But angels are chimeras. It can be a positive image and hopefully help with a worldwide shortage of organs, not create a monster. Professor Bruce Whitelaw, the interim director of the Roslin Institute, where Dolly the sheep was cloned, said, "This is an exciting publication. It clearly demonstrates that human stem cells introduced into the early pig embryo can form a human pig chimera. This is the first scientific publication to achieve this result. This is a first in the development of chimeric animal production and paves the way for significant advances in our understanding of development in the embryo and hints towards future novel biotech applications." Professor Robin Lovell Badge from the Francis Crick Institute said, "An ability to make interspecies chimeras would be valuable in terms of providing basic understanding of species differences in embryo development and organ function. It would also offer the possibility of growing human tissues or organs in animals for transplants, although this is still a long way off. The goals of the study are therefore highly laudable."
This was Jerry's Food for Thought.
And now we're back from a quick break from Jerry's Food for Thought, and we're going to continue our conversation regarding Griffin by my friend and podcaster and first-time author Justin Cancellieri.
Other creative things that he does, and just like your wife does. How neat. Interesting. Well, what would you say would be the most, I guess, in the story, without giving it away, of course, no spoiler alerts. What would you say in the story, like, was the most, I guess, difficult part to write, or just trying to think of what to write next? I know everybody has a writer's block. Was there at any point in the story a writer's block?
Oh, there were numerous, and I actually would talk to Eric several times and say, "I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna give it up. I can't continue. I can't end the story because I don't know where to go with it." He encouraged me and would always say, even if you write crap, just write. You can always edit it later.
Right. Yes. I absolutely. I think everybody gets to the point where, like, they just don't feel like it's worth their time. They're tired when they come home from work and they want to hang out with their spouse or friends, girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatever. And they just think, okay, I don't even know if I can start this, let alone finish it or what have you. Do you think it was more like in the middle of it that you just felt like you wanted to give it up, or?
I would say probably almost half, maybe about 3/4, because I was at a point in the story where I couldn't decide what to do. Take the Griffin and make him public? Do I just keep him secret? Does he become a gallant hero in the end? It was hard to make those decisions. There are a couple of scenes where people die.
Oh, wow. So it'll be a trilogy. So let's just say, fast forward, a year or two and you've gotten the trilogy out. What other types of topics would you write about? If you had unlimited time, if you didn't have if you didn't have to work another job or whatever, if you could just crank it out, like...
I mean, a lot of my ideas are not necessarily sci-fi or fantasy, but there are, I actually, it was funny because I was looking at my idea book after I recorded with Eric, and I'm like, where did half of these ideas come from? Because I don't remember any of them. But I do have a couple of books where it's kind of linked to the end times. I have a couple stories where it's still kind of sci-fi fantasy kind of a thing, because I do have a story about a vampire hunter, and I don't know where I came up with this one, but all I wrote down was it lived in the closet. No other note, but I have other ideas, yeah. And at some point I will probably write a memoir. Eric and I are talking about writing a memoir about our adventure together through starting the investigation team in the podcast and where we are today.
Oh, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting. I was thinking about writing kind of a quasi-fictional novel that has some sort of fact and sort of fiction together, about all of our experiences as podcasters, and, come up with some sort of, scenario like someone's trying to sabotage the podcast shows or something, or someone's trying to sabotage the podcasters, period, or something. Who knows?
Well, there's a lot of people that say that the internet will be dead by, I think it was 2020. And
wow.
That would take a huge chunk out of every person that has made a life on the web. YouTubers,
that's
podcasters.
True.
And it has nothing to do with anything other than the internet has gotten so big, it's starting to crash itself, basically.
Mm. Oh, interesting. Yeah, that will be a sad day, because we're all so interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
I never would have thought, like say, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, that I would be able to speak to somebody, and see them and hear them. I just thought it was something in Back to the Future, that it was something fictional, and
right.
maybe one day in the very far flung future that I'll be able to do that. But I never thought I'd be able to chat and hear and see somebody at the same time. And
well, if
and
you
I never
are
thought
to
I'd be a
believe
podcaster.
Back to the Future, 2017, we should have already had flying cars and hoverboards. So I want to know where the heck my hoverboard is.
I know. I want my hoverboard too. Where's my DeLorean? And,
right.
and the hovercraft and the flux capacitor and everything. I want to be flexing, going through time. Yeah, it's funny. There's some of the things that some of the older movies state that we should already have by now. Like Minority Report, I think, said that we should have flying cars, and what else? I think George Orwell, in his book said some things that should have occurred by 1984. And,
oh yeah, there's a lot of futuristic movies that were set into like 1990, 2000, and there's all these fantastic things. And it makes you wonder too, because technology has gone leaps and bounds in a very short time, but like, was it being held back before now?
It could be. It could be. Never know. Wow. Interesting. Well, what would you say to people that need advice about, starting, just coming up with ideas and starting to write a book and, and publishing and whatever, what kind of advice, specific and general, would you give?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, just have an idea. And if you are passionate about what you're wanting to write about, then go for it. One quote that I've heard numerous times is you write what you know. And that is true. I mean, I have been in the paranormal community for going on 9 years now, and I've always been fascinated with Greek and Roman mythology and science fiction. So I write what I know. I would say to anybody that thinks it's easy, it's not. I mean, it does come naturally to a lot of people, but you're going to want to give up. You're going to want to throw in the towel, and you're going to ask yourself, when do I have time for this? And the best thing I could advise anybody is, and this is actually something Eric has said to me, even if you don't write for an hour, if you at least think about what you're going to write for an hour, then think and write for an hour. Just take an hour out of your day, and sooner than later you will have an entire book. But you have to stick with it. Right.
And so many authors that are popular now, that's what they say, or what about, if somebody has an idea to, even if they don't have access to a typewriter or a laptop, what if they were to record, something, even on their iPhone, record something on their phone.
You can totally dictate your story. And for example, if you feel that you don't have enough talent to actually write it all out, there are such things as ghostwriters. They will write the story for you, and you have to okay it. I mean, you have a contract between you and this other person to write your story, whether that's your life story or a fictional story that you came up with. Because, I mean, truthfully, I have a very large vocabulary. Probably not as large as others, but I have a huge vocabulary. But I struggled using a lot of the same words throughout the book. So I had to use my word processor and look through thesaurus to actually come up with other words to describe something. Yeah.
Sure. All of us do. Absolutely. I have to use my thesaurus quite often too. Hey, the thesaurus almost sounds like another type of dinosaur being. Yep. There's a brontosaurus and thesaurus.
Thesaurus. It's this weird book-like creature.
A book-like creature, right? With pages for wings.
Yeah, there you go.
That would be funny.
Hey, there you go. There's your first story.
Yeah, there we go. Or like a children's, like a method to teach children. Like this is the thesaurus, the dinosaur, or whatever. I don't know. He teaches you synonyms and.
Actually, I don't know where the gene comes from. Eric and his sister has the creative gene. His sister's an actor, I guess is what you call every actor now. And he's a screenwriter, and I'm now a published author. Our cousin Marcus, it has been in screenwriting for a very long time. And, I had decided at one point that I want to start my own publishing company. That might be a couple years down the road because there is capital that you need to put behind it. But, there are several people in my family that want to publish a book, and they're just scared. And it's like,
that's where I am at right now.
If I start my publishing company, I will publish your book. I don't care if it will do good or bad. I'm not going to be that publisher that says I'm not taking on your story because it's not going to sell. Now, that may kick me in the butt in the long run, but at first I'm going to let people publish their books. I mean,
sure.
If nothing else, I will direct them to Kindle Direct because there is easy ways to do it. And a lot of people do not publish their works, even in today's day and age, because they're afraid it won't work. And if I could say anything to anybody, if one person reads your book, you've gotten your story out there and somebody has read your story. It doesn't have to be 100 people. It doesn't have to be 1,000 people. If one person reads it and enjoys it, shares it with people, then there you go. And that was my ultimate goal, was just to get the story out. I don't care if I make $50 or $1 million off of the books, which I will probably make very minimal, because I've had numerous authors tell me, unless you are the next Stephen King or J.K. Rowling, you will have to publish 100 books to even make a decent living. So.
Sure. Right. Absolutely. The seed starts in the mind. If you have an idea, go with it. And don't think it's stupid. Don't think that it's been done before. I mean, it may have been, but you're the one that can put your own flavor and spin on it. Whereas that other person, could not. Like, for example, like I am more like a nonfiction writer, maybe with a little bit of fiction, whereas, like, for example, you would be mainly fiction, with some nonfiction elements in it. I really feel like I should write my own story, in an autobiographical format, and then later on, combine elements that are factual with some fiction, like I was saying, some interesting, suspenseful story about, podcasters or what have you.
Well, yeah, and look at, like, for example, look at Heidi Linden. She wrote her first book from a autobiographical standpoint, but her publisher that she has now had made her change it and have a pen name, because the stuff was so truthful and it was so controversial that they're like, you can't do that because you will be sued. You need to you have to have a pen name, and you need to change the story a little bit. And so,
change the names of people, perhaps.
Yeah. And, so, I mean, you can write a factitious book, change names. I know that, I believe that her next book is going to be from a fictitious standpoint, but based on real life, just like any movie, based on true story. But how much of that story was a true story in a movie, because Hollywood had to spice it up 300 times in order for it to sell. Right.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, that's very interesting. Well, I'm happy to hear that you're a published author, one of the many things that I really admire about you and Eric is that you guys, have an idea and you just go for it, as opposed to, a lot of people, maybe even self-included, will just think one day I would like to be a podcaster, or one day, I would like to be a movie producer, or one day I'd like to be an author, or what have you. So, but here you are, you've done it, but I can't tell you how many times I've thought of doing those things, but haven't done it, or just hadn't had the opportunity to do it. But I still think it's never too late
for podcasting. So there you go. You have it in you to do it. And now, and this will probably be controversial, make a lot of people upset. Not everybody is cut out for podcasting. Not everybody is cut out for writing. Right. But you do have other talents that you are good at. And, a lot of people will say, if you want to be a podcaster, if you want to talk and get your story out there, do it. I'm going to be the first to tell you that no. You need to first and foremost do your research. Find out what would work best for you. If you want a podcast, that's great. Start out. Make sure you have the best equipment you can afford at the time. Make sure you have a decent format. This is coming from somebody who started out with an idea that was basically, hey, we talk a lot about cryptids and vampires, werewolves, all this stuff. So let's start a online radio show, is what the thought in my head was. And this was all after a night of drinking. So take it from somebody who has been through the ringer. It takes a lot to do podcasting. It takes a lot to do writing. Even if you're talented at it, it takes a lot to get it done.
Sure. I think that, just like people who, show up on American Idol or what have you, not everybody is cut out to sing. Like, for example, me, I mean, I'm not cut out for professional singing. I mean, I could probably karaoke, and I didn't necessarily have a room full of people like, fleeing the premises and, having horrified faces or whatever. Yeah, some people laughed, they clapped, sometimes they would dance or whatever. I thought, okay. But I would not be able to be like a Celine Dion or anything close to her.
Well, the funny thing is a lot of people that go on those shows think they're the best thing since sliced bread, and most of the time they're not. So
right,
and,
exactly.
Unfortunately, and I've heard this from numerous people that go on these reality shows like American Idol, America's Got Talent, they are given their life story. It is not truly their life story, or only part of what their life story really is.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting. So some of it's doctored, huh?
Right.
Wow. Well, I've heard of things like that where, these reality shows, the contestants or the people in it, were told to ham it up, or just be more dramatic than normal. And that's not really them, or it's kind of them or whatever. And thinking, well, I thought this was supposed to be quote reality, but it's kind of doctored reality. But that's show business.
I forget who it was. There was somebody that my cousin knows that went out for it. Eric's sister, I believe. And even, I don't know if you know who Kat Williams is. She was on, The Voice, and she's from North Dakota. Even she said, I was handed a script of what my life story was supposed to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Supposed to be. Interesting. So the person's family and friends who know better would feel...
Honestly, I'm not sure. All I've heard is they've been given a script to read, or it is part of their life story, but like you said, they tell you, beef it up. You need to be crying.
Beef it up.
It needs to be more dramatic than you got sick when you were young and now you have asthma but you're singing. It has to be more dramatic.
Oh, interesting. More amplified.
Yeah.
More interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, that's show business for you. Well, it was a pleasure speaking to you, Justin, and I'm happy for you, and I know you'll go far with your writing career, and it's a blessing to see you guys really take off with your dreams, and that really inspires me to do likewise. And I have a upcoming Jerry Jenkins seminar, and we'll see how that goes, see what knowledgeable chunks of truth he might have, or advice that he might have for us as aspiring writers. But I feel like I should have done this, like I said, 14, 15 years ago when I was a young pup. But, I don't think it's ever too late for somebody. Even if they're 80 years old, I think that, if God has laid it on your heart to tell your story, then so be it.
I feel the same way. I feel that I wasted a lot of my life trying to pursue education for something or another, and I really wasn't meant for that. I've gone to school for massage therapy. I've started pharmacy tech classes. I've started business management classes, and both the pharmacy tech and business management, I tapped out. I'm like, I can't do it. It's not for me. It's not what I'm looking for. And the massage therapy, I was good at it, yeah, but as a male and as somebody who was in a very saturated business, I wasn't making any money. So I'm like,
sure.
I was blessed enough to get the job with the Postal Service. And even that, I'm like, I really wish I would have found this 10, 15 years ago, because I could be close to retirement by now.
Right. Oh, sure. I understand. And you're still fairly young. So if you're feeling like that, imagine how I feel. And I'm years old. So, but as long as I look young, some people, they meet me and they're like, "Oh, aren't you in your early 20s?" And I'm like, "Yeah. Oh, I love you. You're my best friend."
Oh, my wife and I went to the bar yesterday to meet a friend of hers, and they carded her, but did not card myself or her friend. And they're like, the guy's like, "Oh yeah, you guys look like you meet the 35." And I'm like, "She's older than I am."
Oh my gosh. So they carded your wife?
Yeah, they carded her, but didn't card me or her friend.
Oh my gosh! Wow, how interesting.
So
well,
that's
a
like,
huge flattery.
I must be tired and look really old because.
Oh no, you don't. You don't look tired nor old. You look Like Achilles. No, I'm kidding.
I wish.
Right. Oh no, don't be like one of those guys that
I won't.
They go under the knife.
Yeah,
and,
no. That is the most craziest thing I've ever seen. No.
Oh, who is it? No, I've seen the lion. There was a lion woman, I think, or a cat woman.
Yeah.
She totally went under the knife and she surgically had her face altered to look like a cat.
There's
and
a guy that's like that too.
Lizard.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but there's a guy that got his face altered to look like a tiger. He's got
yeah, I saw that guy.
He had piercings all the way through his lips, and I don't know if it's Botox or cheek implants or whatever, but I'm like, why would you do that to yourself? And then they complain they can't get jobs. Well, no kidding.
I heard about that guy, and I think I watched an interview that his employer has him in the back. He's a technician of some sort, and his employer has him in the back because I guess he feels that he's unpresentable.
Yeah.
And, well, I don't judge, but I mean, I guess
try not to, but in my older age, I'm starting to.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so I'm all for self-expression, but boy, if it's really extreme like that, I mean, don't be surprised if you get looks. I mean, I guess that's why people do those extreme things to themselves, to get looks and to get, to garner attention, to have people notice them, but it could backfire.
Well, and I mean, we're in a day and an age where people are confused about their gender, which to me personally, I mean, it's possible it could happen, but to think that you were supposed to be a lion or a lizard or this weird horned creature thing, or
a griffin.
Yeah, you're actually a griffin. You think you're a dragon. I start to question people's sanity. Like,
right. That they seriously are really lost and they really need help.
Or there are people that call themselves non-binary. They don't associate with male or female. And it's like, okay, every animal and creature on this planet is divided by sex, except for maybe worms that are asexual. There are a couple other creatures that are asexual, but it's like, biology says that most of the creatures on the planet are separated by male and female.
Right.
So I don't know how you can be neither or associate as neither, but.
As neither. Right. And then some people, very few, but some people do, and God help them. But yeah, I've seen that. I think now I think when I see those surveys, it asks you what your
other.
gender is.
Yeah.
Other, right? Male, female, other, and then, I mean, I have seen, those, surveys for, your ethnicity, that it'll ask, are you Caucasian? Are you African American? Are you Hispanic? Are you Asian?
What race are you? I'm human.
I'm human. Yes, exactly. Right. I'm only human. No, sorry. That was
Getting into
bad.
the karaoke.
Yeah, we're karaokeing, right? I don't see any Okies to carry. Do you?
That would be a weird creature.
Anyway, this is a funny story. My friend, this was 17 years ago, and in the year 2000, before I met my husband, I had a friend named Jeff, and I guess my coworker thought he was sort of Okie. And so I would say to my coworker, let's go karaoke, right? And then my coworker would say, oh, are you going to carry Jeff? But I thought, oh my gosh, that's a horrible joke. But it's like, oh, so what's an Okie? Somebody from Oklahoma, or I don't know. I think Oklahomans probably would take offense to that. Anyhow, well, do you have any last words? I mean, not ever, but last words regarding your book?
Just go buy the book. You can find it on Amazon specifically. I'm sure that if you just Google Justin Cancelliere, it'll pop up there. It's JustinCancelliere, or the Legendary Creature Project, The Griffin, and it will most definitely pop up on Amazon. Like I've said, for any inspirational words, if you feel that you are a writer and you have a story to write it. Even if you have to dictate it, even if you have to have somebody ghostwrite it. Yeah, it's not going to be great, and not everybody is cut out to be a writer. I will say that again, but there are a lot of talented people that don't ever get their book published because they don't feel it's going to be good. So I encourage anybody that has that type of conviction to get it done.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Justin, for being my guest again. And I think maybe this is the fourth or fifth show, or maybe third or fourth show we've done together. I forget.
One of many and many more to come, I'm sure.
Yes, God willing. I hope. Well, okay. Well, thanks so much, Justin. I appreciate you being on my show, and you're always fun and fascinating to talk to, and I wish you the best of luck with your book. Your book endeavor will be in my prayers and thoughts.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Thai Girl for God radio on the Fringe Radio Network. I hope you enjoyed my interview with first-time author and podcaster of Paratruth Radio, which is Justin Consigliere. And I hope you also go to Amazon.com and type in his first name, Justin, Justin, and his last name, Consigliere, Cancilliere, and type in the name of his book, Gryphon, which is Gryphon. And I hope you download it and read it, or purchase it and have it sent to your home. It's a fascinating read, and feel free to go to Paratruth Radio and like their Facebook page, and you can also send him a message about what you think of his book and his show and everything. I hope that you tune in next time for the next Thai Girl for God radio show on the Fringe Radio Network. Take care and God bless.
When you're feeling you're giving all that you got, I'm with you in the next step, giving you the next breath. I'll be the voice saying you're gonna make